for people who are eating more meat or trying a carnivore diet is they are going to undereat fat. That's just going to happen. That is the most common problem, I think, for most people trying a carnivore diet. And the way that's going to manifest itself is you're going to have fatigue. You're going to be draggy. You're going to be like, I've got no energy. I just have no energy. And that's because when you adopt a meat-heavy ketogenic diet or a ketovore diet or a high-fat carnivore diet, you're going to shift away from being a sugar burner. And then this is another aspect of physiology that doesn't get talked about enough, and most doctors have no idea that there's a second fuel source that humans can use, and that's ketones and fatty acids and triglycerides. There are very few cells in the human body that can't burn ketones for fuel, or triglycerides or fatty acids, depending on the cell type. There's literally a short list that you can almost list on one hand of cells types that cannot use that. They have to have glucose. There's some in the human testicle, some in the human ovary. All the red blood cells have to have glucose. And then there may be a few cells in the human eye and the human brain that need glucose. But your body can make that glucose anytime you need it, right? And so the vast majority of people have this just beat into them unconscious fear of animal fat. And so they'll be like, okay, I'll try this. And so they're doing carnivore with skinless chicken breast and with pork chops that they've trimmed every single bit of the fat off of, because they just can't eat bacon. It's got too much fat. You can see the strips of fat in the piece of bacon, right? And they're eating eggs now, but they're like, I eat 6 eggs, but I throw away 3 of the yolks because that's just so much fat. I don't know. But that's not how you carnivore. That's you will not be successful, because you'll have such a lack of energy. Your skin will suffer, your hair will suffer. You're going to be miserable. Human beings are lipivores, meaning fat lovers. Some of the very first paleoanthropological research I read was by a lady whose name is Jessica. I've forgotten her last name, but she's at either Stanford or Harvard, paleoanthropologist. And she said that we now pretty much know that the first animal foods that humans ate was the brains and the bone marrow of previously killed large animals. And so lions or a hyena would make a large kill, and they would eat all the lean meat and whatever entrails they wanted. And then we would either just sit and wait for them to go take a nap, or we would then later figure out how to scare them away with a group of 10 or 20 of us. And then we would take very large rocks, and we could crack open the humerus and the femur and the calvarium and get to the brains and the bone marrow, which are almost pure fat. So even the largest saber-toothed tiger could not crack open the skull of a big bison that it had killed. It could not crack open the large bones, the humerus or the femur, and get to the marrow. And the marrow in the brain stay fresh and edible for days after that animal is killed. And we figured that out because we're tinkerers. We're always messing around and checking stuff out and trying new stuff, right? And so we figured that out. And that probably thanks to our ancestors doing that is why we have this large fat-filled brain, because now we had access to this wonderful, delicious source of fat that we had never had access to before. And so then we later started hunting and killing these animals ourselves as we developed the weaponry to do so. And now we are this modern Homo sapien sapien. And so anybody who's going to try keto, ketovore, or carnivore, you've got to eat the animal fat that comes with the meat that you're eating. And you most likely need to cook the meat in animal fat. And you most likely need to put some animal fat, aka butter, on top of the meat after you've cooked it. Then and only then will you be getting as much fat as your body is craving, as much fat as your brain needs, as much fat as all of your internal organs need for optimal health, which is obviously the goal that we're all after.
Any other ways of upping that fat through lard, tallow, butter?
So you're never again going to buy 90-10 ground beef, or 85, 15 gram beef. You're going to buy the worst you're going to buy is 80/20. And if you have access to a meat department manager or a butcher, you're going to ask them to make you a 70-30 grind, which is 70% lean, 30% fat, because that's going to give you about a 1-to-1 fat to protein ratio. Okay. That's the sweet spot where most people need to start. Some people need more fat than that. But for anybody, the 1-to-1 fat to protein ratio is going to be a great place to start. A strip of bacon is about a 1-to-1 fat to protein ratio. An egg yolk, not the whole egg, but just the yolk, is about a 1-to-1 fat to protein ratio. There are many dietitians out there, Jesse, who are like, oh no, the yolk's pure fat. No. It's 1-to-1 fat to protein in just the yolk. If you eat the entire egg, then it's a 3-to-1 or a 4-to-1 protein to fat ratio.